The film I'm discussing today is Some Kind of a Nut. I wanted to jump in, having just recorded the discussion, and mention that I think for pretty much throughout the discussion, I referred to it as Some Kind of Nut without the A. So I apologise for that. The film is called Some Kind of a Nut. Now into the discussion, where I do on multiple occasions incorrectly title the film. My apologies for that. Some Kind of Nut is certainly an interesting film. This was released in 1969. It's directed and written by Garson Kanin, and we have a cast including Dick Van Dyke as our protagonist, Fred. And it's because of Dick Van Dyke that I became aware of this. I think I might have watched it if I just discovered it randomly because it did sound interesting. And I will say it is interesting, but I feel like the first third is where most of my excitement was. That was a really, really fun start to the film. And it's not to say it became bad or boring. I just feel like the quality kind of dropped off more and more as the film went on. It starts off with Fred getting a bee sting in the park. He gets stung on his chin. And he ends up growing out a beard because it's painful to shave where the sting is. Well, obviously, the skin's reacting to this sting. And he works in a bank. And they say, no, you're not allowed to have that beard. And he decides that he's fed up with people telling him what to do, especially with something as basic as a beard. And he rebels against this. And it's basically about people's response to this. And there are a lot of people supporting him in this. There are obviously people who are completely against what he's doing. And as a concept, I thought it was quite interesting, particularly watching it today. Whereas, okay, I don't work in a bank, so maybe banks still have some strict rules, but I can't imagine anywhere today, I could be wrong, certainly in the UK, I can't imagine there's anywhere that says you're not allowed any facial hair, unless maybe you're working in a medical profession or something, and it's maybe a hygiene issue. I'm not sure if surgeons are allowed facial hair, for example. I googled it. From what I can tell, surgeons are generally allowed to have beards as long as they obviously take precautions and cover it up and things. So yeah, obviously watching this today, it's quite a bizarre set of attitudes, and it's really fascinating, and it was really, really fun, and we had some really great comedy in this. But as I said, the quality did seem to just drop off more and more as the film went on. It never reached the point of me being bored, and I was never disliking what was happening. It was more so the case that I just feel like it became less interesting over time. So in general, I'd say Some Kind of Nut was ultimately an enjoyable film. There wasn't anything about it that didn't work. There wasn't anything about it that I didn't care for. I just feel like the quality isn't sustained right throughout. But in the film's defense, it does have a very, very strong beginning. The first third is very strong. Dick Van Dyke gave a great performance. Fred is a very well-written character. We have some really brilliant music in this. Music is by Johnny Mandel. Visually, it's a fairly impressive film, and I had a lot of fun with it. So it may not have been perfect. Over time, it did weaken, but as I said, never to any significant point, and I still came away from it feeling like I was happy with the experience. And as I said, I probably would have watched it if I'd discovered it and it wasn't Dick Van Dyke, but certainly Dick Van Dyke does make it a little bit better. I'm happy to recommend Some Kind of a Nut. I think it's an entertaining film. Did I refer to it as Some Kind of Nut a few minutes ago? I might have done. My apologies if I did. It is Some Kind of a Nut. And as a film, it's entertaining. Certainly watching it today, I think it's probably even more entertaining. And I had a lot of fun with it. If it sounds like your kind of film, check it out. Some Kind of a Nut is not a bad experience. And I'm happy to recommend it.